Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Burndy OH25 HyTool self-resetting ratcheting crimping tool. This is compatible with gauges from 10 gauge all the way up to single aught gauge. This is a pretty heavy-duty tool. It's actually rated for a maximum of 3 tons of force or 6,000 pounds of crimping force. But you don't interchange the dies. Instead, the different connectors that you get to use with this look like kind of standard battery terminal connectors or through connectors to run cables into. Some they run end to end, some they run side to side. With this tool, the splicing is run end to end, so you have one cable that goes in one side and the other cable that comes in the other side, and then you crimp both sides of it. Also known as a service crimper, because i.e. the power that comes into your house oftentimes is crimped to cables inside your main electrical box, and this is one of the types of crimping tools they would use, or the electricians would use. There are many styles of these crimping tools. There are cordless electric ones and hydraulic ones. One thing that's common about these type of heavy-duty crimpers is that they have real eye-popping prices, especially retail. If you search for OH25 on Google, yeah, you'll see some prices north of $600, although these go for as cheap as $100 on eBay. These types of heavy-duty crimpers really are much more expensive than most people realize. That's why they're so rare. I'm putting up a video of this because there are no YouTube videos of this tool at all. There are some YouTube videos of Burndy crimpers, but not very many. And really, just the nature of the type of people who buy these, really these aren't bought by individuals. Most times these types of tools are bought by businesses and electrical utilities, and a lot of those people just don't make many YouTube videos. I mean, even in 2018, this tool has been around for a long time, and it was surprising just to not have any on YouTube. Now, for that price, you do get a pretty high-quality tool. I actually found this at a Habitat for Humanity for $4, and just because I'm sure they just didn't realize what it was or how to look it up, or didn't even bother to try to look it up. So obviously I got a pretty fantastic deal on this. Actually, I didn't even know what it was when I first picked it up. The jaw wouldn't move, and so that's part of the issue, and all I had to do was properly oil it. And that may have been why it was tossed in the first place, as it was determined to be broken. When in reality, it just needed some service, which is ever so common in these types of tools. This is a complicated ratcheting tool. We can even just look in the back here, and there's a lot of parts inside. What's interesting is the body is essentially sheet metal for the capture all the different mechanism that's happening inside. But the actual crimping jaws are forged steel. And then the bottom jaw has a replaceable, they say that it's stainless steel, but I think on this older one it may not have been stainless steel, and there's little set screws. So you can replace this lower little nub when you need to. And initially I thought it was odd that they didn't have other nubs available for it, but when you look, these are still sold today. When you look at the kits, they just don't have different nubs. You would think for different size wires you would have to replace with different heights of these nubs, but instead it appears that they just do it with the connectors. And they do sell a set which includes this crimper and then a bunch of the terminals that would go along with it, and man, that thing was over $1,000. Anyway, it has it's self-resetting, and two, it has a progressive ratchet mechanism, meaning that when we do our first pull here, the jaw moves quite far. And then as each ratchet pull of the handle, there is a non-linear cam, and as it ratchets further and further up, each pull of the handle gives you more and more leverage, and of course the jaw will move less and less and less. And that's how it achieves all the force that you need to crimp those heavy-duty connections. And now it's just barely moving at all. And then when it reaches the top, it resets back to open again. What makes this crimper so handy for items such as battery terminals is because it is just a manual ratcheting system. Hydraulic ones you kind of have to fiddle with and then pump them up. Large bolt cutter style, and I have done a review of a Burndy large bolt cutter style crimping tool, which will of course crimp the same sizes as this does, but it's a huge unwieldy unit. and doesn't get as wide a crimping area. A lot of times with that big bolt cutter style, you have to crimp twice just so you can get a nice wide surface area. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at this. This is just an aluminum collar that I'm using as an example. But what's interesting is this collar has about 1/8 inch thick walls, maybe not quite that thick, but quite close. And how this works is it just has a rounded die which dents the bottom, and then it has this top jaw which also has a little cutout so the wire can kind of offset so it really holds on well. And then we'll just put it in here and do a quick crimp. What's nice is you can ratchet it and get the terminal in there just how you like it, and then make sure it's onto the wire before you finish your crimp. And even crushing a piece of aluminum does require a bit of force. And we can see it just starting to deform there. And voila. It still takes quite a bit of hand force. Right at the end I still had to use 2 hands. But really this is about the smallest and lightest weight kind of crimper that you can get and actually be able to upset something as thick as this is. And so those 2 jaws, the idea is that it kind of creates an indentation and the center portion will kind of get pushed out. So it creates a convolution, really lock up the wire. And then of course that round spot indents in through the bottom just to give it extra holding power. And then thirdly, it kind of makes it triangular, which, you know, upsets the size, making the internal hole a little smaller. So it does work pretty well. You just have to make sure to use just the right size terminal. If you use a terminal that's a little bit too big, it just won't cinch onto the wire properly. And that's kind of the deal with this tool is that you really need to have just the right terminals. And so it works just fine with, you know, standard off-the-shelf terminals. Some, you know, auto shops are doing, you know, battery terminals. But mainly because those are pretty large size, and so this works fine with the larger size. But if you're trying to use this for like 10 or 8 gauge or 6 gauge, you would need to get some special terminals or find a couple that you can sleeve on top of each other so they'll fit properly in these jaws and you can squish them down. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick review of this crimper tool and have the first review of it on YouTube. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching. Please subscribe. Catus Maximus out.